Falcons Audible is back, presented by AT&T. We got the guys back in the house. We got the smiles on the face, although we don't always just have the smiles on the face when there's a win, because we what they call professionals. So we bring the information whether it's win or loss. But it was a win. 24-15 victory. Falcons over the Saints. I'm Derek Rackley. That's DJ Shockley, Dave Archer. We're going to get going on the Falcons Audible. Here's what we're going to discuss. Before we dive into the game, we're going to talk about the 50 years of hip-hop that went down at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in all of its fabulousness, from pregame to in the game to halftime to second half to you name it, it was all over.
Yeah, for sure.
We're going to talk about the fellas' favorite moments from that. We will talk about some of the highlights from the game, a little bit of Q&A. Little bit.
Just a 10.
Don't want to open the door too much. Little bit of Q&A.
Got call-ins.
And then I've got the guys are going to tell us how we remain in control of the NFC South, because as we know, Falcons are back on top of the division after the victory over the Saints and Buccaneers stumbling last Sunday. So guys, let's go ahead and get into it. Before we get into the matchup, I want to ask you guys about the 50 years of hip-hop. Let's talk about some of the festivities that went down during the game. And let's just go into it. We'll say, DJ, your favorite moment, maybe it was a performer, maybe it was a performance, maybe it was something else from the game.
I'm gonna keep it all the way a buck. I'm a guy from the city, so I loved it all. Seeing all those different, I would say, dignitaries of the city in one place is pretty cool. I mean, obviously, seeing my man Luda come from the ceiling, I'm waiting for Arch to do that, because obviously he has to be next to do that. And obviously Luda in the halftime show, my man Big Boy, T.I. coming out. I mean, dude, Bone Crusher.
Pick one.
I can't. I just told you. I told you I like them all.
He said he
so
likes
I talk
them all.
about them all.
He likes them all. Arch, they did, right before the game, they did announce every single one of them. And it took forever because there was so many of them in the house. So,
like Arch, he don't like that.
I didn't remember there were that many young. I had no idea.
Young Jeezys?
Well, there were young.
Everybody's young. Everybody's a little.
They're all young. Yeah, they've been around for a long time, but they're still young.
Forever young. That's what hip-hop music does for you. My favorite, obviously, Luda was you pick Luda, so I won't do that. And I didn't think they were ever going to get him down. I thought he was hung up. He was hung up about 60 feet above the – and they're getting ready to try to play, and Luda's still up there getting it. My guy, Pastor Troy, broke it down. He got it done. That was cool. Cruz. I was Wes was asking me a question, and I think was Pastor Troy, was he third quarter? Was it like the change of third quarter? I can't remember. Anyway, he's blowing it up big about the second level up there, and I'm kind of looking out the window trying to see him. I've met him, good dude, and I'm listening to him. Crowds into it. Wes is asking me a question about what we're going to do for the fourth quarter. I go,
I'm watching concert.
I'm sorry. Pastor Troy was
clearly not paying attention.
No, I was not paying attention. So I was hung up on it too. So I think Shock and I enjoyed being fans there.
Yeah, I mean there was a number of great moments in that one. I'll give Bone Crusher a little bit of a shout out too. He was hyped, man. He was getting after it
Serious
up there.
Face and all.
Finished his performance with a little holding up the Grady Jarrett jersey, showing him some love. But guys, I'm gonna go with the low hanging fruit. Ludacris, like I didn't know about him coming down from the ceiling.
Yeah.
And so, like, all of a sudden you see that, special performance by Ludacris. And so I'm like every other fan, I'm kind of looking around. And then I see the Halo board, and I'm like, wait.
Where he at?
He up there. And then they drop the banners. And then all of a sudden Luda comes down, because they've dropped Freddie from the rafters before. And I always look at it and I'm like, there ain't no way.
Yeah.
But like Luda looked so cool.
Yeah.
Like he was like, it didn't look nervous at all. I mean, one time he had his hand on it with the microphone. Another time he didn't even have, I mean, he was just out there chilling. Like that must have been no fear from him.
I equated to, I remember the one time I did zip line. And I'm holding on to that thing like this as I'm going down. And Luda just bouncing around. I said, this man brave as I don't get out. Couldn't be me.
It was phenomenal. He's fast and furious, man. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah,
serious.
He's in those movies.
But to your guys'
Arch,
point,
would you ever do that? Would you ever do that? No.
We got all of
like
our
call like the first quarter from up there or something like that.
Just dangling above the field.
You got a great view. You see everything.
Yeah, no question.
There are listeners and viewers that are saying, "Didn't you guys play in the NFL? Like one of the most risky professions there is." Yes, we got our riskiness out between the white lines.
I can control a lot of that.
But anyway, there was so many great performances, so many great entertainers, celebrities in the house, that it was a very cool experience from start to finish. So great job by everybody involved in Atlanta Falcons organization for making that happen. All right, let's go ahead and get into the matchup. As we mentioned, a 9-point victory by Atlanta. There's a number of turning points in this game. DJ, obviously, Jesse Bates had another interception. This one takes all the way back to the house. First one of the season. Ends up, it was during the game, he ended up being tied for third in the NFL. I don't know if anybody else had any interceptions throughout the rest of the day that ended up changing that. Coming into this one, I was looking at it as, got to keep our eyes on Paulson Adebo. He had 4 picks coming into this game, and then all of a sudden it was Jesse Bates that ends up kind of stealing the show, playing center field there, reading the quarterback's eyes, cuts underneath it, makes a great play. Whether it was that or it was another moment, what were some of the turning points in the game, in your opinion, or some of the performances that stuck out that allowed Atlanta to come away with this victory?
I think, obviously, on the offensive side of the ball, I look at the way Bijan run. I thought the way the offensive line created some holes for him. But I think the one thing that stuck out to me was we saw number 84 be violent with the football in his hand. I thought CP's just energy, his ability to be able to run through people and get the crowd into it. I thought he was a guy that brought a lot of juice to the offense with the way he played. And I love the way that they used the 3 backs throughout the ball game. And you look at the numbers, and, Algier rushed for over 6 yards a carry. And you look up, CP had 5-6 carries. You got 7 the ball a bunch of different times in a bunch of different ways. I just love the way Arthur Smith attacked them on the offensive side of the ball. There was so multiple in the way you did it. There were so many great concepts in the pass game that allowed you to be great. I mean, the touchdown to Bijan on the rail or wheel route, whatever you want to call it, was a masterful way of drawing it up. You get the motion. You get man coverage. You do a good job of getting him isolated on Demario Davis, and Ritter does such a great job of holding his head in the middle of that field to keep Tyrann Mathieu there so that he got a little pressure. He gives a little ground and just drops an absolute dime to Bijan. This was, I thought, a wonderful and masterful game. I thought on the offensive side by Arthur Smith, some of the things that they did to kind of give them an advantage to be able to move the football.
You mentioned that the passing play to Bijan. I mean, Pete Werner ends up coming basically unblocked. I think somebody at the last second, Arch, tried to end up chipping him, but he had to kind of buy some time in order to let Bijan get down the field. But he knew he had Demario Davis, and if you got Bijan against Demario Davis, 9 times out of 10, you're going to go ahead and take that matchup. But it was a good throw by him. I mean, if he undershoots him, maybe Davis has a chance to come back and make that play. On the running play, too, where he scored, Arch, to me it looked like there was a great combination block by your right guard, right tackle, expanding the hole. But Bergeron comes around on the back, and he ends up getting a seal block to hold the backside defender to allow him to get through the hole to get back up to speed. So you talked about the offensive line. There were some moments where they really performed well.
There was one other instance that comes to mind when you talk about the combo blocks and double teams. There was like a 17-yard run by Bijan in the outside zone. Lindstrom has maybe a 3-4 eye on the outside. He has to get his butt to the sideline, and he hooks him. You got Parker Hesse, you got Michael Pruitt. They do such a job of double teaming. Hesse gets up on the second level. Pruitt gets up on the second level on the backer, and it creates a nice run lane, and he picks up 17 yards. Bijan ends up tripping going down, but he picked up 17 yards, but nobody touched him going through that line. Just an awesome job of the combination blocks at times with the O-line.
Arch, there obviously was a lot of discussion around Desmond Ritter coming back into the lineup as the starter. Again, wasn't a perfect game, threw a couple picks in this one. I know last week one of the things they talked about with Desmond Ritter, and Arthur Smith said that he's a guy that's always looking forward. He doesn't dwell on what happened previously, and I think you could make that same argument from this game. Like, it'd be easy for a guy to all of a sudden fall into a hole after you throw a pick and then you end up throwing another pick. Matthew makes a couple of great plays, but he didn't. He continued to stay the course, and he made some really good throws in this game. So not only some of the guys that he talked about, but Desmond Ridder and the defense really stood out in this game as well.
Well, there's no question the defense stood out. You forced 6 field goal opportunities. I mean, how many times do you see that? A team moved the ball, and they moved the ball from 30 to 30, but once they got to the 30-yard line, Atlanta built a wall, and they had to try to convert, and it was because of pressure, and it was pressure from the secondary, it was pressure from linebackers, it was pressure from the front four, so they got it from all 3 levels in the different things Ryan Nielsen was designing to get after Derek Carr. It unsettled him in key moments of the game that forced them to go kick field goals. Desmond Ridder's ability to extend plays in this game was monstrous. He ran for 3 first downs in the game. He also had a play where I don't know how he didn't get sacked. He spins out of a sack, skates to his left, and finds Van Jefferson along the sideline for a completion that extended a drive. So his ability in the off-schedule stuff to be able to keep things alive, I mean, there were 2 or 3 times where he just hemmed in because of his strength, was able to push through some guys and then take off and run for first downs. I even asked him after the game, I said, that might be something you need to continue to maybe look to do. Not necessarily you want to throw the ball, you stay within the confines of the offense, but if things open up, don't feel like you got to shoot it down. Go take that 15 yards because he can go get it pretty quickly. I thought the 2 plays for me that were key, the Jesse Bates interception you mentioned, I've seen maybe 1 or 2 other safeties make that play. He's in center field when the ball's snapped. Dead center field. He's the middle safety. And he said, watching tape, that Derek Carr will jump and lock on to the slant route. He said it was a gamble. He said, but I was willing to squeeze the trigger. I was going to take the gamble, and so he jumped the route. Because if you look behind him, there's a guy running a seam behind him that's a walk-in touchdown.
Backside,
But because Bates read the quarterback's eyes and jumps it, the only other safety I've ever seen come from center field to make an interception on the numbers or outside the numbers is Troy Polamalu.
Yeah.
That's the kind of play it was. And then the turnover down the red. So the Saints had not turned the football over in the red zone all year. 2 red zone turnovers were monster plays. He gets the punch out. Richie Grant gets the tackle on Taysom Hill, and Jesse comes in and punches it out. 10 tackles, interception for a touchdown, forced fumble for Jesse Bates.
And not only that, guys, I mean, if I saw the replay correct, it looked like Jesse Bates came in with a legit right hook on that. I mean, it was his fist was zoned in on the football. This was not one of those where he came in and just tried to reach or rake. He literally came in there and threw a right hook and got his fist right on the football to knock it loose. So, Arch, you talk about the little things, his instincts, right? Knowing to go for a football in that situation, taking the chance, undercutting the slant. Because if that would have been a slant and go or something, again, would have been burned. But that's tape study. It's knowing what he wants to do. And then, as you mentioned, is reading the quarterback's eyes. When I watched the replay the first time, I said, he is all over Derek Carr's eyes in this situation, and he goes right underneath him, and he ends up taking the football away. So another great game by Jesse Bates and continuing to prove his worth in the secondary. One thing I wanted to ask you guys about, and I might have missed it here, but I saw a lot more DeMarco Hellams in the secondary in this game as well. And I think Arthur Smith was asked about it, talking about trying to bring in some guys to keep them fresh. But this was a guy, if we go all the way back to preseason, he made the team because he was making plays on special teams, and they knew what he could do on defense. But they said when he came out of Alabama, he always knew how to find the football. And now you're starting to see the progression of him being in regular downs defensively, and he got in a number of tackles in that game.
Well, remember, he had 2 interceptions in the preseason on defense, not just special teams play, but his prowess on defense, playing defense. So he knew he had a knack for the football. He had 7 tackles in the game. He knocked one of the receivers completely out. In fact, he stood over him and he got a 15-yard penalty for knocking him out. But he is a physical presence that he brings to the table. And in talking to Arthur for his radio show this week, he says there's a combination of understanding the game and willing to squeeze the trigger on what you're thinking. That's kind of Jesse Bates, right? He says DeMarco Hellams has one of those same kind of DNA in him.
And I think it gives them so much more versatility on the back end, because you can see there were times where you had all 3 safeties in at one time. Richie Grant in the slot, or you have D. Alford, whoever it may be, and you could play all those different combinations and feel good about it. And it only helps you down the stretch to have that many guys or multiple guys who know what they're doing on that back end and who you trust.
I thought there was another point in the game, and one of my keys to the game was don't let Taysom Hill affect the game. Now, he still made a couple plays. He made a catch along the sideline. He had one run that was an explosive in the game. But they were really physical with Taysom Hill. I mean, Trey Flowers blows him up on the sideline, on their sideline on one play. He came through another time, and somebody else rocked his world when he tried to run the football. There was a concerted effort when he came in. You kind of have an idea what's going to happen. It's going to be that quarterback sweep or quarterback draw or whatever it is. Every now and then he'll throw it. But they punished him in the game when he touched the football. I think that's the only thing you can go for, and I thought they did a good job handling that package.
It's interesting, Arch, because for the pregame show, my keys to the game as well was I had a threesome. It was Kamara, it was Taysom Hill, and it was Chris Olave. And Olave ended up having a good game. I think he's one of the budding superstar wide receivers in this game. But the fact that they didn't allow Taysom Hill or Alvin Kamara to take over the game, they're going to find their yards. They're really good players, right? That's the reason why they've been on that team, and they continue to be on that team. But they didn't allow them to change the game, right? To put the ball into the end zone. And as you mentioned, it was a bend, not break defense for Atlanta this past Sunday, and a very good performance from them. Guys, there's been discussions about, and there's questions asked to Arthur Smith at his press conferences about Desmond Ridder, the turnovers, interceptions, reading the defense better. So no one better to answer this question than two quarterbacks. And I know a lot of it is experience. It's seeing more stuff on tape. But for a guy like Desmond Ridder, DJ, what is it going to take for him to limit the amount of turnovers moving forward to put us in the best chance offensively to win football games?
I think there's so many things that goes into that because a lot of it looks like it can be on the quarterback. And sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. There's a lot of things that go on in a ball game that maybe a guy didn't run his route correctly or they see it differently than you do, and it ends up being an interception or being something that doesn't bode well for an offense or for the quarterback. So there are a lot of things that go into it. I don't think everything is entirely on him. But I give people a couple examples of how Desmond Ridder absolutely does see the field as well as anybody. And there are a couple instances where, he wants a couple footballs back. He wants a couple throws back. But there was a 15-yard curl route that he hit Drake London on. There was a deep over route that he hit Drake London on that he had to lay it in a minuscule hole to get the football in for him to catch the football. On the 15-yard curl route, he has to read curl flat. He has a flat route, and he has the underneath defender. He has to kind of finagle to get through there. He reads it out perfectly, lets it go on time, and it's a big 15-yard completion. There was the 15-yard scramble, one of those, off-schedule plays you talk about. They run a similar concept, and you get a deep corner route by Pitts, and they're playing quarters, so you take that away. You get a flat route as a high-low combination, and they take that away. He actually is about to throw the flat route and pulls it back in and ends up taking off up the middle for a big 15, 17-yard scramble. Yep. That tells you he is seeing the field. It tells you he understands where guys are supposed to be, and he's just not forcing the issue. Now, there are times now, obviously, the pick to Tyrann Mathieu, he probably wants that throw back because you got to see the defender, see where he's going. But there's other instances in the game where he is seeing exactly what's going on in a ball game, and he is starting to learn just by playing. And I think the only way you do that is to be in the game. Yep. It's hard to do it in practice. It's hard to simulate it. It's hard to, I'm going to put the ball in my right hand, I'm going to run through 5-6 guys, and they're going to chop at it. It's just different. You got to be in the ball game. We saw it when he got in the game a couple weeks ago before the bye week, and he runs the zone read. And we talked about it. The ball wasn't in the right hand. Yeah. It was in the left hand as he went into the end zone. Those are just small things that he has to kind of ingrain in his brain and say, all right, when I have the football in my hand, I have to take care of it in a different way. And I think he's learning better to do that. So there are a lot of instances, I think, throughout a game that you look at and say, okay, maybe that wasn't entirely on the quarterback. Yep. I know Arch probably can speak to it better than me. He talks to Coach Smith, and, there are a lot of nuances in a concept or a play that doesn't always say, okay, it's on the quarterback. There are a lot of other things that go in.
Arch, what sticks out to you? Is there anything else as far as turnovers that he can kind of reel in a little bit?
Yeah, and it's going to be his decision-making on when to take a chance and when not. And they may sound simple, but if you're going to throw the ball over the middle in the red zone, which is where the interception comes. We run it to the 10, Bijan gets us a first down at the 10-yard line. We decide to throw it on that play. Bijan comes out and he's going to run a circle or a little angle route, right, to the inside. And Jeez, I got my phone.
People are trying to get in touch with
I don't
Arch
know
here.
why I can't keep people from calling me. Sorry.
Looking for Arch.
So Bijan's going to run an angle route. The spacing on the play was screwed up. Van Jefferson releases early. He comes across the field. Van needs to clear. That's on Dez. He's got to let Van clear. Because it was so quick and right behind Van, Bijan got a little discombobulated and felt like, I'm too close to him. I got to slow down. So he slows down and idles down. Well, Dez is turning the ball loose because he's expecting to be in that angle route coming to the inside. He rushes the throw. He has time to let it kind of mature a little bit.
Yep.
Janu's route is too tight. So there's a bunch of things going on. But anyway, in the red zone, because it's a compacted area, there's too many guys close to the play. If you overthrow something in the middle of the field in the red zone, it's going to be picked off, especially in a zone situation. The other interception, Van Jefferson's not running. He's got to run. He's got a clearing route, and Dez is trying to throw a back shoulder to him. He's got Scotty Miller wide open on his curl route to the inside because it didn't really declare itself because Van's not really running. It allows Tyrann Mathieu to crane his head back to the inside and look.
Yep.
If he'd been running, he can't run with Van Jefferson. If Van Jefferson's hauling out of there, Tyrann Mathieu's got to get his rear end out of there because he's going to get beat over the top.
Right.
He's not looking back. But because he's lollygagging a little bit, and then the accuracy where the throw was, he threw it too far to the inside.
Yep.
So all those things combine to the quarterback throwing 2 interceptions. Now, where do you take your chances? Where do you not take your chances? The only thing he can control is his accuracy to football and when he decides to turn it loose in what areas to put it in harm's way. So other guys are going to have to do their jobs too. That's what adds up to interception. Everybody sees it hung on the quarterback. 2 interceptions. There's so many other things going on.
Yeah, that's one of the things I learned early on in my career from Dan Reeves is that you might be third in progression, but there's a reason why you're third in progression. Your job is to get somebody else open, and you have got to take the right releases. You got to get to the right depth, and to your point, if you got a clear out route, you got to freaking go, and you got to get somebody's inside shoulder and get their shoulders turned, get their attention turned away from where the throw is going, and give a little credit to Tyrann Mathieu. Like, he's a savvy vet. Like, if you don't end up affecting him, he's going to go make a play, and those are some of the things that end up happening. All right, so we talked about Falcons now on top of the NFC South. So we're going to talk about how do they remain in control of the NFC South. And before I turn it, guys, over to you as far as what they need to do, I'm going to give you my answer real quick, and it's going to be the most simple, the most coach speak answer that you can imagine because it was the same thing I said last week, and it's the same thing that's going to be for this week and next week, is to worry about the here and now. Yeah. That's how you remain in control of the NFC South. The moment that you or anybody else starts looking at the schedule and saying which games are wins, that's when you lose. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like, they have to go on the road to the New York Jets, and their job offensively is to win first down. Yeah. That's it. Like, all you got to do is win the first down, and then you got to win the first drive, and then you win the first quarter. Like, this team, and this is no offense, because you could make this argument about any NFL team. Like, they're not good enough to look 3 games down the road, and how do we end up going 3-0 over the next 3 games to remain atop of our division? Most NFL players and coaches are going to tell you they're only worried about right now. What does Kirby Smart say after every post-game interview? We're worried about next week.
Right now.
We're worried about Georgia Tech. I remember they asked him that.
1 week away. He says it every single
We're worried
week,
about the next opponent. So, to you guys, like, what else does Atlanta need to do to remain in control of the NFC South?
I think it comes down to I think it's pretty simple. What we talked about is you have to win inside your division and win at home. And I think without looking forward, and this is not for like the team to say, all right, let's look forward to winning our next home games, winning our next division games. To be successful in this league, those are the things you have to do. Win in your division, and you have to play well at home. Well, they did that this past weekend. You win at home and you win in the division. That's a step forward in the right process of where you're trying to go. But I think ultimately it just comes down to the nuances of the game that we talk about every single week, not turning the football over, doing the little things on both sides of the ball that gives you a chance to win. Tackling in space, not giving up the big plays. I mean, those are – it sounds so cliche. It sounds so easy, but those are the things that win ball games for you. You didn't see a bunch of, like, procedural penalties. You don't see stuff that puts you behind the chains. You go on the road this weekend with the Jets. You have those kind of issues, and you look and say, oh, well, their offense is this, they're that. Those are recipes for you to have a bad day. And I think if you look back – from a fan perspective, people looked at, okay, you're going to Tennessee with a rookie quarterback. You should go get a win. But at the end of the day, you still have to play the ball game. You came out and played well. You go to Arizona or you get Josh Dobbs coming here off of, 3-4 days, and for whatever reason it doesn't work out. That's what I'm saying. You have to go play the game and play the game that the way you're supposed to, and I think that's ultimately how you go about it.
Arch, it all sounds simple, but in the NFL, the execution is not simple.
Yeah, staying in control of your destiny is what you're saying, because they do have that in their minds, is to not worry about the destiny.
Yep.
You got to worry about, you mentioned it, Shock said it in several words there, about the Jets are all you can think about. You can't think about, if we win in the division, and we can talk about that.
Right,
and
sure.
Shock talks about, you got to win in division, you got to win at home. But that's not even in their mind. They can't worry about that. This week was about beating New Orleans. Yes, it was a division game, and it was at home, so it was a double dip in that regard. Now it's the Jets, because you lose to the Jets and the Saints win, you're back in the same spot you were again, and it's the same. So the way you stay in control is to not worry about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Is just think about the team that's in front of you right now and getting ready to play a Jet team that is scrambling. They're trying to get themselves kind of back right in the back end of the AFC, hoping that the other quarterback comes back. I don't know what they're thinking. I know this is a formidable defense, and they've got some playmakers on the offensive side of the football. And last I checked, we just gave up 10 plays of 15 yards or more on defense in this game against the Saints. You can't do that to the Jets, because they're going to get some kind of rhythm. They've got Breece Hall, they've got Garrett Wilson, they've got a bunch of dudes that can go make plays, even though you're not seeing it happen. Doesn't mean they're not going to happen to you, just like the Will Levis scenario, right?
For sure.
All of a sudden, the Boyle, the quarterback, all of a sudden this is his coming out party.
Exactly.
Got to worry about what's going on right here. Who cares about the division? All that stuff will take care of itself if you take care of what's right in front of you.
Exactly. Worry about the here and now. And that's what we got drilled into our heads when we were playing and tuning out the outside noise. I understand that in broadcasting and talking about things on a podcast, that's our job, to start looking ahead. But you don't look ahead.
Sure.
You don't look ahead. You worry about the here and now, and things are hard enough in the National Football League. This is not college football where you get a guarantee game where a team is so much of a lesser opponent that you know you're going to win. That doesn't happen. No. You can look at the schedule. I mean, we thought we were going to face Jaron Hall, and then at their first quarter, things got blown up, and you're like, oh, Josh Dobbs is coming, and we got this. He's been here 4 days.
Wait a minute. Now, Shock at Georgia had games that they knew they were going to win, probably 11 out of 12. You at Minnesota, me at Iowa State, we never had one of those games. It was the next game in front of us.
Single one was a challenge.
Georgia is like 11 of the 12. What are you going to just throw roller helmets out there?
Come on, UT Martin comes into Georgia.
Never did that.
Yeah,
Never.
Yeah.
It's always.
I know Minnesota didn't pay nobody $1.5 million to come in. All right, so that's it. Falcons need to worry about the here and now, and they need to just continue to win each play.
By the way, we got to mention real quickly, Jake Matthews plays his 155th consecutive game. And I don't know if you're going to get that. I apologize for cutting you off there, but he's played in 156 of 157 games. He was my guest on the Coach's Show this week, and I asked him what happened. He missed the second game of his career. He got a little tweak of the ankle, couldn't go in week 2 of his rookie year in 2014.
Wow.
That's the only game he's missed. He's played 156 of 157 games, and he's played in 155 straight. His 10th season. Got a brand new youngster that he just welcomed in about a year ago. And by the way, that was part of the streak.
Right.
As they flew him in late to Carolina to keep that streak alive last year.
Yep.
So, congratulations to Jake. That's a pretty cool.
Passes Matt Ryan for the most consecutive starts in franchise history, and he currently has the longest active streak in the National Football League. And again, to think about the position, I mean, you could say that for anybody, but somebody that plays on a line of scrimmage with how physical it is and how much pushing and shoving that's going on up there, that shows a lot about conditioning, keeping himself in great shape, and then obviously the want to.
And one last thing, our man Younghoe Koo, leader in the NFL right now, active in field goal percentage at 90%. Took over Justin Tucker because he missed a field goal. So he holds the lead right now.
Which is, if you know the history of the last 10 or 15 years, if you're passing Justin Tucker, you're doing some good things. Because that dude has been special since he came into the league with the Ravens. All right, so that's going to wrap it up here for the Falcons Audible presented by AT&T. Thanks so much for joining us. Like I said, we come on here with energy after a win and a loss because we want to bring you our insight, our analysis, analysis and what we see on the field and what we think moving forward. So moving forward, Atlanta Falcons looking to go on the road this week and come back from the New York Jets with another victory to stay atop the NFC South. For you're DJ Shockley, you're Dave Archer, I'm Dave. Sometimes you get going fast and they can go together. I'm Derek Crackley. It's Falcons Audible presented by AT&T. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time right here.
Go Dogs.
Row, 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 row.